Yeah, let's get cracking with the show. This week, we touched upon it there. A lot of headlines about Manchester United, a lot of people very vocal about United on social media on it. And of course, it does mark just over a year since INEOS took charge. So it gave us a little idea for this next section.
Yeah, I think it's like 12 months and a week, isn't it, basically, since they came in. So today we've got Cams, the Man United fan, in the hot seat. And we're going to assess 9 different areas of the club. And we're going to decide whether or not they've improved, stayed the same, or gotten worse under INEOS. Quite simple. Nieve, why don't you chip it in from the neutral perspective throughout? Okay, first up, we're doing signings.
Yeah.
So signings under INEOS. We can have a look at the full list of signings now. Obviously, quite a lot of money spent there.
Yeah.
Cams, what are your thoughts?
I think with the signings, there's some that have contributed this season and been pretty decent, like Mazraoui. I think when he started, he was very good. It's kind of tailored off a little bit now. But I think overall, the jury's still out for a lot of the signings. You look at Joshua Zirkzee, last few performances have been a little bit better, but has he had that goal threat? Still not there at the moment. De Ligt, again, it's up and down. I think Lenny Yoro is a positive signing due to his age, due to what he did at his former club. And you look at his potential as well. He does look like he'll be a very good centre-half in the future. So that's a little bit of a bonus, but I do think there's just too many that the jury are out for at the moment. So I have to put signings as not much has changed as
Stayed the same.
Yeah,
Do you
stayed
reckon
the
that
same.
if another club, club that's going through a successful period, made all those same signings, that it would be at this point? Do you think that the problem is the signings, or do you think the problem is the club?
I think a lot of it is the club. I think a lot of his club. It can't be a coincidence that so many players join Man United and all of a sudden they become bad players overnight, and then maybe when they leave, they have a little bit of resurgence. So I do think the club play a part, but also when you look at like Mazraoui and De Ligt, they did come from top clubs too, and had to come down in a way to Manchester United. So is it them or is it the club? I think it's a little bit of both, but I do edge more towards the club.
Are you surprised, because on the graphic that we saw, a lot of those signings were in the winter window. Are you surprised that only 2 came in January? Because a lot of Man United fans were quite vocal about what was needed.
Yeah.
Are you surprised that more players didn't come in?
Massively. When you consider outgoings, which we're going to talk about next,
Yeah.
but no attacking signing this January, I think, was an absolute howler. And in a way, it little bit felt like, are we just kind of like packing in the season a little bit? Like, are we just thinking about the summer? That was really concerning. I mean, bringing in a wing back in Dorgu, I was positive about that. And I think he's good. Now, the last game, 2 actions, maybe it looks really bad, but he looks like a good player. But I think overall, not bringing in an attacker was so detrimental. So detrimental.
Yeah, just Dorgu and Aiden Heaven, of course, in January. Let's talk about sales. Now, the next magnet that you have is outgoings. So again, there's quite a lot to contextualise this. We can give you some information on the players that Man United have let go. So again, this is all under INEOS. So firstly, we'll look at sales. As you can see, a lot to take in. The likes of Scott McTominay doing well at Napoli, of course. Donny van der Beek left, of course, as well, and Wan-Bissaka. So a lot of players these are all, as I say, sales under INEOS. But there's also a lot of players that you've loaned out in the last year.
That's only page 1.
Now this is only page 1. You've got the likes of Jadon Sancho at Chelsea there, who's on loan. But there's another page of this because there's a lot of outgoings, Cams. As you can see here, Joe Hugo with a secondary loan, hence why he's on there twice. Marcus Rashford, we know, has gone to Aston Villa. Malasha as well, PSV. So there's a lot of info to take in on there. Where do you stand on the outgoings under INEOS in this last year?
You know what? I'm actually going to put that as a positive. I think when INEOS came in, one of the things that all Manchester United fans we talk about is there needs to be a clear out. There needs to be an overhaul in terms of the players. Now, the incomings haven't been so good yet, but in terms of outgoings, getting rid of some players that we did deem in a way as deadwood, they've actually done that. You know, some of them loans, when you're looking at Anthony, you're looking at Rashford, you're looking at Sancho, we hope, and Malassia, you hope that they are going to turn into permanent signings. So in terms of outgoing, you saw how many players were on that list. I do think INEOS have made an active effort to get rid of players. So I've got to give them a plus. And I also think more are going to come as well. You're looking at Casemiro and some certain players that I think in the summer, Lindelof, I think they're all going to go. So I think when it comes to trying to make money through the club, I think INEOS are doing a pretty good job at that in terms of letting players go.
Do you know with, say, Casemiro, for example, there's reports now that he won't leave for less than the wage that he's currently on.
Wow.
As time progresses, if there's more players like that, well, let's look at Casemiro as the example, and you will be actively losing money every single week for him being there. Will the resentment, do you think, of the fans turn to him for not leaving, or towards, is it just purely the club for putting yourselves in that position?
I think that's comes from also the previous board as well. I think there's been so many instances with what you're saying at Man United where somebody's on a wage where it's like no other club's going to take you. It happened with Phil Jones. It happened with a lot of players. Nobody's going to take you. So you're stuck at Manchester United in a way. I think the resentment, knowing the way online is and knowing the way fans are, I think it will actually turn to the player. I think if you're actually critically thinking, if a manager, if a club or a board can't move somebody on due to their wages that they got from a previous regime, there's not really much they can do in that regard. They're doing the loans and they're doing the 50% payments, but it's hard to really sell and make any type of profit at Manchester United at the moment. It's really hard.
Nieve, I wanted to ask you on specifically one aspect of this, the loans. Look at some of the players. Look at Marcus Rashford, who you're holding up now. You know, gone to Aston Villa. Looks like he's put some great performance in early on, so it's very hard to gauge. Obviously, Scott McTominay at Napoli, even Anthony putting up numbers. What do you make of some of the players that have gone out and seem to have found a bit of form since leaving?
I wonder if expectation comes into it and patience that these other supporters and clubs will have. I think with a lot of them, it does almost look like a weight's lifted when they're playing football. You can sort of see it, I think. And I think we'll definitely see that with Rashford at Villa, because if times did get tough and he hits a patch, they get right behind him and push him further. Whereas I think with United, it had got quite a bit toxic, hadn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, where do you...
I'm going to put that as a positive.
Okay,
nice.
I'm going to put it as a positive.
Let's go to first team squad then.
First team squad.
How do you think the first team squad's shaped up?
I think it's worse. I do think it's worse because I've just spoken this whole time about the outgoings, but what I said before is the incomings haven't matched it as of right now. And I do think, maybe harsh, I do think this is the worst Man United squad in terms of talent and that I've ever seen in my whole life watching Man United. So I think at the moment, the talent is really, really bad. The level of what we're displaying as well, it's not good enough. It's not Manchester United standard anyway. And I think even with the first team squad now, I think if I was to ask you, Joe, now, like how many you would genuinely keep and envision that could be part of a top Man United squad, you'll struggle to name 5 to 7.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's obviously, I do think there's a lot of young talent which we're going to speak about in a second. And the way that INEOS are trying to move is obviously to acquire younger players that can be there for the future. Whereas at the moment, it feels like quite a squad packed with players who are approaching the end of their career. You know, Casemiro's, Christian Eriksen's, it looks like Johnny Evans, who's been a great servant to their club's going to leave in the summer. Tom Heaton's out of contract. So it feels like United are kind of caught at the moment in the middle of two different positions, doesn't it? So when you come down to first team squad, I agree.
Yeah. So you're sticking that on the...
Yeah, I'm going to say, Nieve, can you help me over there?
For this column. Okay, I think it brings us nicely onto the next section, because we are talking about young talent effectively.
Yes.
So this can be academy players, but also can be young players as well. You've got the likes of Toby Collier, Ethan Wheatley, Chido Obi. I know a lot of fans are very excited about him. Let's not forget the age profile of a lot of your current players. Lenny Yoro's only 19, Cobby's only 19, Garnacho 19. So there is a lot of young talent at Man United. But where would you... What's your thoughts on the younger players at United?
I think the young talent is a positive. I actually think this is improved as well when you look at, as you mentioned, Aiden Heaven coming in. Look at Chido Obi, Lenny Yoro. There's been Toby Collier has made some impact lately.
9 appearances for Man United, Toby Collier.
Even Dorgu's 20.
He's exactly, Dorgu's 20. He's actually shown himself pretty decently, Toby Collier, in the fixtures that he's played. Yeah. So I think young talent, you can see there's a drive that Man United are trying to do at the moment, led by Jason Wilcox, Christopher Ravel, who's actually now a permanent director of recruitment. So I think United are doing well on this side. I did go to the FA Youth Cup game yesterday to watch United versus Arsenal. We won. Yeah. And there's some good players there, man. There's some good young talent. So in terms of Carrington and the young players and the drive that INEOS are trying to do in terms of hiring or buying young players, I'm actually positive about it. And taking Chido Obi off Arsenal was...
Yeah. Second youngest Premier League player this season as well. Only Mikey Moore is younger to make his Premier League debut. How important do you think this is strategy-wise for United going forward, Nieve? The fact that we've alluded to the amount of money they have spent and the wage bill they have on some of the experienced players. The fact that they might not be able to spend huge in the summer. That bringing through young talent for the future of Man United. How key is that for their success, do you think?
Absolutely, because they are continuing to lose money at just an astronomical level. So to have, as you say, young players that are also going to be fighting to be part of this next generation of Man United as they try and rebuild and get going again, I think it feels like a very, when you look at the past of Man United, it feels like that should be a route that they should go down as well.
Yeah, okay, let's get
I'd
them
agree
up
with that.
there.
I think that's a positive, yeah.
Next up, we have got Erik Ten Hag. Now, let's contextualise this a little bit. We want to talk here, using this magnet, really to talk about the decision to keep Erik Ten Hag, extend his contract, and then sack him, 3 months later. Yeah. Where does that sit with you?
I think that was really, really, really poor from Manchester United, actually, and from INEOS. And I think they had a decision to make in the summer. And I think in a way, I think they bottled that decision. I really do. I think the fan pressure as well got to them, because we were all, as a fan base, we were living off the euphoria of beating City in a final, FA Cup. Wow, if he wins 2 trophies with this squad, imagine what happens next season. Yeah. I think they bought into that, and I think it was so early into their tenure, they didn't want to make a massive decision that could sway the fan base away from them. And in the end, they got it wrong. I mean, we gave him more money. We signed some of the players that I've put as the jury's out for them. Didn't improve. In fact, we got worse. It was one of our worst ever starts that we've ever had in the Premier League. And to then sack him, and considering what Manchester United's financial issues are, the reports just came out, and we're
10.4 million pounds.
Yeah, 10.4 million was the cost sack him and his staff, worth pointing out, according to reports.
It's outrageous, man. It's crazy. And the fact is, we gave him an extension, and that is when I was just like, I don't think at this point they really were confident in what they're doing, in terms of, as soon as he signed that contract, we had a few losses in the start of the season, and there was already talks like, this might have been a bad decision. And
well, I think as well, there was a lot of reports when the contractual situation was happening that United were speaking to other
managers
as well. Exactly. There were reports of Thomas Tuchel, Thomas Frank being interviewed, and that situation as a whole
became messy.
Felt like an absolute mess, didn't it?
Yeah, I think what the turning point for me with Ten Hag, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on this, was about, I think it was November 2023, when he'd said about how he can't play how he played with Ajax because he doesn't have the players at United, and he went down a different route. Whereas you look at Ruben Amorim now, and I know he's not been there too long, but he's really leaning into this is how he wants to play and sticking to it as United go further down the table. Did you prefer it when Ten Hag tried to show pragmatism, or do you want the manager to be like Amorim and just really lean into it and what he's all about?
It's funny because you're kind of in the middle. You're a little bit in the middle in this one, because the way Amorim is like very focused on his style, but at the same time the results are terrible, and you're looking at it and you're saying to yourself, is there a way he can stop the bleeding at least? Even if he wants to keep his style and he wants to keep his formation, which is perfectly fine, how do we stop these losses, And some people are saying, well, don't compromise. You can't compromise these players, because that's what Ten Hag did. But I don't think you have to be all the way left or you have to be all the way right. I think there's a way you can be a little bit in the middle in terms of staying to your style, but also stopping it from becoming some of our worst form we've seen.
I think it brings us nice onto the next one.
Yeah.
So stick Ten Hag up, because we're going to talk about the current Manchester United manager, of course, Ruben Amorim. That's the next magnet that you've got. So you've got Ten Hag on the board. Amorim we're going to talk about. I think it's only right that we look at a little bit of a comparison, because you started comparing the two there. So we've got a very interesting head-to-head, actually, which sort of breaks down. So the first one, now this is all competitions this season. So Manchester United under Ten Hag played 14 games a season, under Amorim 23. You can look at the wins. Now, the win percentage is quite a lot different, as you can see. 28.6% under Ten Hag, but a lot higher, 47.8% under Amorim. But let's compare this with just the Premier League, because it's quite a different graphic we're looking at now. Wow. Worth pointing out, again, more games under Amorim, 16 compared to Ten Hag's 9. But the win percentage, there's only a percent and a bit in it. 33.3 for Ten Hag, 31.3 under Amorim. So where do you stand, with Ruben Amorim, Cams?
You know what? Like, I really like Ruben Amorim. I really, really do like him. I know the results right now are not what we want it to be, but I do think he is in a position where he has come into a squad where we were sliding. As you can see there, like, because Ten Hag's statistics might be a little bit better in the Premier League, it doesn't mean those are good statistics. So he's walked into a club which was sliding a lot. INEOS are making it very clear that players are going to be leaving. There's so much change that's going on at the football club. And I think even for himself, Ruben Amorim, I think if he had the opportunity to make the decision again, he would 100% do it in the summer.
And also, it's interesting, isn't it? Because he wanted to carry on and start afresh at the start of the season. I think we do need to contextualise that it's very difficult for any manager, such a young manager as well, to come in mid-season and actually implement new philosophy, change the formation. So I think, he does need time, doesn't he? What are you thinking?
But then because it's been that bad, do you know it's been that bad? Because we've seen managers come into teams fighting relegation throughout the season, and they find a way to just help, like you say, stop the bleeding, and we see instant progression. But it's because it's been that bad, the results. Are you not so concerned? Are you still though? We need to give Amorim time, and are you happy for Amorim in the summer to spend hundreds of millions of pounds, even if it could set you back even more?
Don't think they'll have 100 millions of pounds to spend.
I do agree that in terms of how bad it's been, I do think there is mistakes that Ruben Amorim has made. That is undeniable. And I think any fan that says, oh, it's just all the players, I do think that's a bit disingenuous. I do think there is some things that we have to look at Ruben Amorim, and he can improve on some of his decision making, some of his in-game changes as well. I mean, not playing any of the youth players as well that he did the other day. So I think there's a few things that he can do better.
So however,
I'm going to put him in hasn't changed.
Okay.
I'm going to put him as hasn't changed.
Let's go to the next one then,
let's go to the next one, which is the boardroom.
Yeah,
we can have a look now, actually, at a little graphic illustrating exactly what has happened at boardroom level for Manchester United, because there has been a lot of changes, a lot of turnover so far since INEOS came in. Obviously, lots of ins, lots of outs, a couple really notable ones. The main one, I think, sporting director Dan Ashworth in and out. Obviously, that cost a reported £4 million to make that change. But technical director Jason Wilcox has joined. Director of recruitment Christopher Vivell was made permanent this week. Where are you on this, Cams?
I think it's good to have footballing people in the club. I feel like we've gone such a long period without proper football men at the football club. When you're looking at the Ed Woodward era, you're looking at when John Murtough was here as well. It never felt like we had footballing men making these decisions. So to see like Barada in there, Vivell, these guys who have a bit of experience, Jean-Claude Blanc, I believe his name is. So to see these guys come in who have experience at top football clubs is very, very good. The Dan Ashworth situation, though, was quite embarrassing, I think, especially on INEOS's part. I mean, we chased this guy for 8 months. We almost got sued by Newcastle. It was like all over the place trying to get Dan Ashworth into the club, to then turn around and sack him within 3 months. So that was a little bit of a howler.
One transfer window,
within one transfer window. So I do think it's an improvement, the fact that we have got footballing people in, and we've already seen some of their work, as we mentioned, with the young talent, with Wilcox and Vivell. So I would say it's still a positive, but the Dan Ashworth was very muddy.
So sticking it in a positive.
Yes.
I think we've got time for one more. So we're going to look at the fan sentiment now. So just overall, you're a Man United fan. So in terms of comparing where you were last year to sort of this year, fan sentiment, how do you feel as a United fan?
I think I speak for every fan in this case, and I think it's really, really dark times. It really feels dark. Even though we're talking about the young players who could potentially become top ones, it's a really dark time to be a Man United fan. And it's not only because of what's happening on the pitch. You're listening to all the noise about the reports about the financial situations.
Yeah.
You're listening to, you just turn on the TV and you're hearing this person's been sacked and these people are getting sacked and food is being taken away from the canteen and stuff. So you're hearing all this noise from off the pitch, and then when you get on the pitch, we're losing consistently. Players are. You saw what happened with Garnacho just the other day in terms of walking off the pitch. Everything at the moment feels like there's a little bit of a cloud over the club. So the only people that can change it at the moment, right now, is Ruben Amorim and the players, and that's what we're hoping for. But I do think in terms of optimism, in terms of feeling right now, it's really, really dark.
Do you think that does happen? Do you think there is a way in which on the field at the end of the season you could come away and think that was actually, you know, we might have had a bad Premier League season, but still in the Europa League, still in the FA Cup.
Europa and the FA Cup. We've got Fulham tomorrow, and I think we really need to go through in those competitions.
Okay, stick that up, and I want to get Nieve's take as a neutral Nieve. So this is Cam's where you put all of the categories. That was the word I was looking for. Tick, stayed the same across. Nieve, as a neutral, what would you have changed here, looking at it from the outside?
I think Cam knows far more than me from sort of an inside look of that perspective. I do think the most important things, though, are the things over here in the first team squad and the fan sentiment. The two real biggies, being in the negative is spot on. From the outside looking in, when you see a news story come out against United of something that they've done, or, you know, just the direction they've taken, like you do sort of think, wow, can it get any worse for them? And then it does. I really don't think it could have gone much worse this opening few months this season for INEOS. I don't think it could have gone any worse.
Okay, well, there we go. There is confirmation, to say, on the Saturday social whiteboard of a year under INEOS and how Cam's ranks them in terms of all the different categories. Very interesting chat, that. Really enjoyed it. Let us know what you think of those selections at home.